I got the text messages, I got the messages through the Discord and through the Patreon and through Instagram. Here's your Creed video. Thank you guys for all the messages about it. I'm sorry it took a little bit of time to get this through, but here we go. It's better late than never, right? So I've got Kyle. Kyle does Scott Stapp, and he does Creed, and he does a few other ones, which you'll be able to see in this video. And he'll walk us through his journey and what it's like doing sold-out arenas. Creed is doing sold-out arenas right now, and I'm gonna be honest, it was a fantastic show. I went to the one for this interview, and when they came through town, I went back and saw another one because it was just a killer show. If you have the opportunity, please go to the show and check it out. Also, if you want to support this channel, please go to our Patreon. And I got these cool little glasses from Ray-Ban, and they have a camera on here. If I hit this little button, we'll do some videos and I'll be able to share behind the scenes. So on Patreon, you'll see us behind the scenes. We're also going to do some live streaming through there, and these can even live stream, and we'll be able to release those. So if you want to support, please go to that channel. Please be a subscriber for it. It'll help make more of these videos, and I'll try my best to give you guys the best behind the scenes access I can. And thank you so much for supporting. Also, a shout out to our sponsors at Guitar Center Professional. Thank you to Guitar Center Professional for wanting to be a part of this and be a part of this journey. Thank you guys so much. So if you are a musician, if you're a house of worship, if you're building a venue, if you're a band on the road and you're looking to get some equipment, please use the link below. Reach out. They got a representative in every single state, and they will give you some of the best pricing around. You got my word on that. And it's from anybody. If you just want to get some one-off piece of equipment, or if you're trying to build an entire venue or a restaurant, they will be able to help you out through the entire process. So please use the link below. And without further ado, here we go. I'm here with Gerhart.
Gerhart. You could just have me pronounce
Gerhart.
my own name.
I'm here with Kyle
Gerhart.
Who runs down for?
I'm with the rock band Creed.
The rock band Creed. What an epic statement. Is this the only one you do? Is there any other secret ones you could tell us about now on camera in front of everybody?
There's a bunch of bands. So I am the full-time front of house and tour manager for the band Fuel.
Okay.
So there's like a 2000s thing going on there.
Yeah.
So I do those guys. Those are kind of my two bands I'm back and forth with between right now. Obviously, all summer I've been with these guys.
Sure.
So I've had somebody filling in for me. But January we're going out with Fuel and Lit. We got a nice little package going out. That'll be a good one.
Wow. Which one's your favorite band to work with to say it on camera in front of everybody?
Oh, I mean, it's these guys. I mean, it's easy. Like you can't beat this.
This is 16-year-old me is freaking out.
Well, think about this. For me, I bought the CD. So
Yeah.
I remember buying My Own Prison in 1997. You know, so I'm like middle school, and going from that to like I started with Scott in 2016.
That's
And
right.
So I've been with Scott for a long time. I've done the Scott Stapp solo stuff since the end of 2016 till now. So I'm going on almost 8 years with Scott. I'm 7 and change with him right now. And then going from the Scott solo stuff to doing Creed, like the journey there has been.
So how much did you freak out when you heard that they were going to do a comeback?
I mean, we've talked about it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's been hush-hush for quite a minute. And all the stars had to align, right? Because
Sure.
all the bands, they're super talented. Mark is one of the hardest working, most talented dudes, and he has a gazillion projects.
Yes.
So he's got Alter Bridge, he's got the Tremonti Project, he's got his Sinatra thing, which is, by the way, if you've not checked out the Mark Tremonti sing Sinatra,
I don't think I've seen that.
It is, on top of being incredible, most of it is to raise awareness for NDSS, which is National Down Syndrome Society. So he does it, like, he is just giving back a ton of money to NDSS and raising awareness for Down syndrome.
Oh man, we're gonna put that link below. So
oh yeah, the NDS,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely check out the NDSS stuff. But like, So Mark has all of those, plus the massive thing that is Creed. So like getting that, and then Scott has his solo project as well. So it's like planning. Scott's got solo record, Mark's got solo record, Alter Bridge, and getting it all to glue. So the time all the stars had to align, the guys had to figure everything out, and it's back, and it's sold out everywhere.
How, man, if you could go that first time ripping open that CD and go tell yourself that could you, like, I think my mind would have blown up.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like I remember like the first couple CDs I ever bought where I bought a Reliant K CD and I bought a Creed CD. They were like the two because I grew up in a heavy, hardcore Christian music thing. So like they were the two first CDs I ever bought. So it's kind of cool to see like, where I'm at with that, and working with that, and like, I don't know, people come to my house and like Christmas cards and like Scott Stapp's on my refrigerator, and people be like, wait a second, is that Creed on your refrigerator? I'm like, this is life.
So would you say that kind of inspired the movement towards running sound? What
I mean,
that?
I grew up, I grew up as a church musician, so I played. I played guitar and piano.
Okay, acoustic or electric?
All of the above.
D.
And then went from that to like running sound at the church, and then like youth group stuff, and then I was the only one who knew how to plug anything in.
Sure.
High school, I got a cool opportunity to be able to go and do an internship at a radio station. Hated working for radio, so they moved me to a recording studio.
Why? Did you hate radio?
It just wasn't fun.
Really?
Nah, wasn't my thing.
How much of it's actually live? Any of it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, but I mean, most of my job as an intern was just like editing, all of the advertisements and the one spots and stuff. It was just kind of boring. So we got into the recording studio, and I was able to do an internship program. So at noon every day, I would leave high school and go to a recording studio. And then I got to do recording all through my junior year and my senior year, which was cool. So then I went to school, decided I wanted to go to school for recording, and it was a toss-up between doing Berkeley or going Full Sail. It's cold in the winter, bikinis year-round. Decided that going to that Florida, seemed a bit more fun. And
also bikinis in the winter.
Yeah, right. Not their students, but UCF is right down the road. But anyway, it was the only school that when we went and visited, that the equipment and everything was cooler in person than it was in the brochure. Because every college tries to make their place look awesome, and obviously Berkeley's amazing facility, but at that time, this is 2009, the facility down there for Full Sail, it just fit my workflow, and they do the year-round schooling. It was quick in, quick out. So that was where I ended up doing that, and I thought I was going to be a recording engineer. Now,
in hindsight, what a great decision, though.
Well, yeah, but it gets weirder, right?
Okay.
So, the entire time I was in school for recording, I was working for a live sound company, and I was mixing concerts. I was like, well, I kind of like this concert thing. It's a lot of fun, which was back to what I had done in high school. And then I came out of school and ended up just becoming a live engineer until COVID hit. I got a great opportunity. There's an artist, is up and coming artist. His name's Kurt Dimer, and he hired me during COVID, and I got to bring into his project. Well, the entire time during lockdown, he hired CLA to be his producer, and I got to be in the studio for 2 years with Chris Lord-Alge. So that is where 2009 me is like, holy crap, you went to your lectures, and now I'm like, I'm in one of his Christmas cards, right?
Hanging out with Chris Lord-Alge. Okay, cool.
Wow. So I've done the live thing, I've done the studio thing, and again, it was like, that was a really cool opportunity to sit behind a legend, watch him work, learn, why I have all these cool compressors and how to properly use them and stuff, and just be a fly on the wall for 2 years and just sponge knowledge from a guy like that.
I have so many questions.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I would like.
But let's go back to live.
Sorry.
So we finished school. We get out of school. We start doing some touring. Early on, I met a guy named Eddie Mapp, who you've done.
Of course.
Eddie's the guy that got me into doing the Midas thing, and Eddie was a person that I started to sponge knowledge from and then the network just started to grow, right? And I've been blessed to have a lot of really, really cool, I can now call them colleagues, but back then they were fucking the idols, right? They were the top guys that were cool enough to, answer questions or pick up the phone, So guys, Pooch has been great. I've been able to spend hours on the phone talking out workflows with him. Guys, Robert Scoville, if I ever had a problem with anything Avid, I had like the direct line to the right people. So I was just blessed to be right place, right time, had enough of those times to have a pretty cool little network that brought me to where I'm at here.
It's for me. It's when people ask me how I got in the industry. I think there's right place, right time, but there's a third part of having the ability to give them what they need at that time.
Yeah,
is huge, and it seems like you kind of learned all of that in one spot.
It's a little bit of everything.
Crazy boot camp.
Yeah, and then I had a stint where I was working for NASCAR. I got a cool contract with them.
Of course you did.
And we were awesome. Traveling around to all the races. So we did 36 races a year.
What'd you do with NASCAR?
We were setting up stage lights and sound for doing concerts. So I learned to be a production manager.
Did you tour with NASCAR?
Uh-huh.
That's a thing?
I was 22 years old. I was 22 years old, driving around the country, setting up full-blown concerts every weekend, and that's where I learned how to load in, load out. I have a CDL, I drive a truck. I have all these random things that all these different little things along the way have built, to what we're doing. So,
biggest lesson you learned from NASCAR?
Earplugs. Earplugs, and how to handle rain. To be honest, because it's always outdoor events, and that was a real thing of dealing with weather, dealing with how to protect your equipment. That is actually a huge ordeal, and also how to load out properly. Because with the NASCAR, as soon as the green flag drops, we're allowed to start tearing down. If we can get
after parties,
if we can get tore down and packed in the truck, and the truck can leave before the race ends. If not, you're stuck until that entire racetrack and all that. So that whole it's all about the out. I learned that hard and fast, because there were times we sat there for 8 hours waiting for cars to get out. So
because cars are priority.
Yeah, of course. That's a life lesson. You get lots of those along the way.
Yeah. Wow, I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So I mean, at most most NASCAR tracks, they'll have concerts going on. We would load in on Wednesday, and then we would do shows.
I suppose that was like local
Friday, Saturday, Sunday
crews that.
At this time, 2010, 11, somewhere, up in there. So
wow,
it was it was a time.
All right, so touring.
Yep.
Tell me about your first tour you ever did.
Oh man. So first tour out of the gate, it was a country chick named Chelsea Bain. Doesn't exist, doesn't do music anymore. But country tour early on, 2010, 11, somewhere
proper
in there.
Bus? Is it a
it was a proper bus. It was a artist of means. So her dad was involved, and we had a good little country run.
Cool.
So done the country thing, done the hard rock thing.
Have you done much country since that?
No, not really. I mean, at the NASCAR thing, we did all kinds of
I'm sure
all kinds of different country stuff. Well, country and rock. There was kind of the two things. And just over the years, man, it's just bouncing through a lot of different artists. I had a whole stint of my career where it was bands from the 80s, like when I did Sebastian Bach, and doing the whole Skid Row metal thing, and that was a whole thing. I've done hardcore metal bands like Miss May I, so it's a wide variety. I just 3 weeks ago I just did a gig for Pat Benatar, so swing the dial on genre, and I love doing that. And my best gigs, or my favorite gigs, have always been the fill-ins. I get to fill in, I've done Melissa Etheridge a bunch of times, she's amazing to work with. So it's getting to swim, to go from rock band 1 week to a metal band to a Americana artist. And be able to take all the skill sets. I do a bunch of hip hop stuff, and then Little Uzi Vert, then Little Durk.
Good for you,
it's different to not get stuck in one genre.
I talk to so many people that are just so stuck in this and they want to get out of this, but good for you to do all of it, really.
Well, sometimes being the fill-in guy is more fun than being the main guy.
That's true.
It's cool to walk in, do a couple cool shows, and walk out and give it back to somebody else. And like, not, you know, you're not trying to snake anybody's gig, but it's just fun to go do that.
Yeah.
And you know, those are honestly some of the best gigs I've ever done, is just fill-ins for other people. So it's you know, it's how you learn too. It's like learning, like you get to dig into somebody else's file and like, oh hey, you know, bouncing off the ideas of what, you know, what works for you or your workflow or your artist. You pull things that you like and you find things you don't like, and you're like, hey, I won't ever do that again, or you know, and those are those lessons that you can only learn.
A few moments later.
Anyway,
I couldn't have chose a better place to do these and a worse place to do these interviews.
it's like, that's the thing.
All the things happen.
Nashville.
Right now.
Well, it's also like one of those things. Like our day is so crammed and compact.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is that with this band, they have a VIP sound check. So they bring VIPs in for sound check, and the band doesn't sound check before them. Like, it's live.
That is the sound check.
So that is the sound check. So if we have issues, like, it's all live. Actually, that's a cool thing about this band. It is all live.
No tracks?
0 tracks.
Really? Click?
We have an SPDX that has click, some 808 samples that he'll hit throughout the time, and our intro, you know.
So it's all
rumbling.
them?
It's all real, dude. There's no hiding behind anything, man.
I kind of love that, and I kind of miss that.
It's a straight up rock band. So we're, yeah, it's drums, bass, guitars, and vocals, and everything is real.
So how'd you get connected with these guys?
So it was through Scott. I was touring with a band called Drowning Pool, and Scott was on a tour.
I'm noticing a trend with some of these bands.
Yeah, right? Scott was the headliner, and we were direct support with Drowning Pool, and he had to go on after Let the Bodies Hit the Floor every night, which is a hard song to come after, right? And unfortunately for Stapp, he had gone through a bunch of different sound guys on that tour. I think they got to 4 or 5 until they finally asked me, like, if I would do it.
Yeah.
And then I did the one show, and then that was that, man. And then I've been since that was like the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, somewhere in there. And, you know, just kept doing gigs, and then I've been with Stapp since then. So then that just flowed into this.
What do you feel like was the key to success for you as opposed to the other guys? What did you offer, feel like?
It wasn't feeding back.
Oh, was it? Feedback?
There was some core gain staging problems. I'd say like one of the big things that I would attribute to success on all the acts that I've done is just being really good at the fundamentals. You know, good gain structure, proper mic placement, proper use of high pass filtering. You know, you have those 3 things as your core, you can make most bands sound good if you can get those 3 things right. You know, and then as you're building, you know, I always, you know, explain to people, like with mixing, you know, I think of frequencies in a vertical realm of 20 hertz at the bottom, 20K up top, finding everything where it sits on, you know, where everything kind of stacks.
Yeah.
You know, and then use of, you know, panning to create width, and use of effects to create depth, and there you go.
So would you say you learned some of that from your CLA days and studio days?
You know, the thing is that I didn't have the pleasure of working with Chris until 2021, right? So I had gone most of my career prior working with him was, you know, recent just on that one project. And getting to, you know, literally just sit behind him. Like it's not like I was mixing the records or anything, like he was doing the work. Sure. I just got to sit behind him, right? But learning from watching and sponging and, you know, asking good questions and getting good responses, it changed some of my stuff, but he really taught me how to get depth out of things, which is really cool, how to like have a really, you know, deep mix that's still, you know, everything has its own space, and like finding, you know, how to, you know.
What was your biggest takeaway from that? Practically adding depth to that.
It's just figuring out how to take, you know, so like for example, this is a band that's a straight up rock band. I've got no tracks, I've got no synths, I've got no keys, strings, nothing, right? Just creating moments in the set that have stereo width and stereo depth to make it have movement when truly it's very static. Like it's just 2 guitars coming at me straight up. So it's just like creating that space between them and movement, and, you know, creating depth with some of the effects and stuff. And it's different in the arenas. I use a little less effects because I've got more room.
Sure.
But on the outdoor shows is where it really stands out. Or if you listen to the recordings for like an outdoor show where we're not dealing with all of the room stuff.
Well, I think this style of music was known for almost a wall of sound and a wall of guitars that came out from that. How do you mix that and not let it get all lost? You say create space for it, but what do you mean by, are you like?
So I've got some clever macros that I've written for some panning stuff that's doing some trickery with some phase and some time.
Okay.
To widen things out and narrow things up, because there's moments in the set where it's just a single mark guitar part, and then there's, then I want to open it up and have it be a big thing. So it's like, level and panning and playing with the phase relationship. We had a little TC Electronics piece here that I use. I watch the phase meter as like where I'm at in my mono mix to my stereo mix, and then using that for leveling as well, keeping that as I'm creating those moments that it's not a giant shift level wise. So it's creating a spatial thing, not a volume thing.
So that's interesting, because most people just want to avoid phase and leave it at that, whereas you're kind of taking it and utilizing it for your purposes.
Yeah, and well, it's taking the sources and molding them to what we need them to be. You know what I mean? And that's something that you can change that with level panning, EQ, all of that, just to get manipulating things. Even time of like one of my macros incorporates having the delay time change on the two mics to change a tonal shift, right? I'm actually intentionally switching the phase relationship between the two mics to get a different sound.
Which two mics?
I have a ribbon mic and a dynamic mic on Mark's rig.
Oh. So on his guitar, you're changing the phasing of the two mics on to change the tone. Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Never heard that.
Yeah, you can. Because again, if you like, it's slightly pushing them a little out, putting them back in, can change the mid range quite a bit. Change the bottom end quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that with that rig, it's all the cleans and all the dirties are coming out of the same cabinet, right? So unless I would sit there and change between different EQ structure with clean to dirty, or whatever, anything like that, different little tricks just to shift how things sound.
So this band's a lot different from the original record. There's a lot of things that changed in their style of playing and their voices and technology, even sonically.
They've matured. I mean, that's the easiest way to. They're not 25 years old
Absolutely.
anymore.
Now, your mixing style, are you mixing as an ode to before, or are you trying to bring it into what it is now?
So
what's your thought process going into that?
So my first thought process when I officially was hired and it was like, okay, cool, you're doing Creed, was I called each of the guys and had the conversation. Like when I talked to Flip the drummer, I'm like, hey, on the record, snares are really, really dry. It is a very, very dry snare, and the drum sounds are kind of like this. Do you want it to be more like the record, or do you want it to be more modern? Do you want it to be more like the Alter Bridge stuff, which is way more metal? And Flip's like, I want it, big modern drums. Cool. Go to Brian Marshall, like, hey man, by the way, one of the most underrated bass players. He is hands down the best bass player I've ever worked with. When you hear it tonight, his bass playing is incredible.
I'm excited.
Like, if I would take the bass out of the mix, it wouldn't sound like Creed. Like, it's really
that much.
It's that much that like it's the combination of the four of them that makes the band the band. And if you take any one member away, it all falls apart. Like it's like locked in, and each one of them brings so much to the table. Yeah. So it's unique to have that. Like, most people you could be like, I could change out a player. Brian Marshall, without Brian Marshall, there is no. It doesn't sound like Creed.
What a smart thing to do, to call each individual musician and ask what their vision is for the sound today.
Yeah, of what they want, because all my job is, or any front of house guy's job is to take what the band is doing on stage and translate it to every seat in the audience. And just all I'm doing, no one came here to see, the sonic landscape of Kyle Gerhart mixing Creed. No one's here to see that. They're here to see Creed, right?
Come on, they'll buy the t-shirt.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, they're here to see the band. And so my job is to represent the band the way the band wants to be represented to everybody. My system engineer, Andy, does a great job of making sure that as we sell out every seat that we can possibly sell, that they all sound good. That it's one of those things of taking the time both on his end, on my end, to make sure that like we're taking what the band is doing and it's going everywhere appropriately. And the other thing to think about, I had an interesting conversation the other night with another artist, and I was explaining to her, it's not just the 25,000 people that are here tonight. It's 25,000 people with 10,000 cell phones that are going out to thousands and thousands of followers, right?
I would like to be tossed in the van, please.
The different, amounts of social media that it goes out. The first thing the band sees when they get off stage is what's tagged online, right? Yeah. So, if we had a TikToker the other night that was at one of her shows and put it up, and she had more followers than the band does. So it went out to millions of people, and I don't get to tell.
What a weird world we're in now.
Right?
That the audience has more followers than the.
Right, and again, I mean, these guys sold 55 million records. Like this, a Grammy-winning 55 million record, massive.
And one
band.
audience member.
And there's some TikTok girl that had more social media followers.
Wow.
Right?
Sorry, keep going.
And so. The idea of scale, of the exponential, what comes out has to be good, right? Because I don't get to tell that TikToker's millions followers, oh hey, the room was really bad this day, and you stood in the wrong spot, and it didn't sound good where your cell phone was.
Yeah.
And obviously you can pull up YouTube videos of shows I've done where on one cell phone video it sounds awesome and another cell phone video it sounds like shit, right? It could be the iPhone videos tend to sound good, the other brands not so much.
Sure.
But I've also seen it where, and I'll get messages online or whatever where somebody's up in like a 270 section. I can't believe how good it sounds up here. And I'll get a hate mail saying the same thing. I can't believe how bad it sounds up here. It's subjective,
it really
but.
Is.
At the end of the day, it's as long as I'm doing my job of translating what the band is doing on stage to everybody, that's all we can aim for, right? Is just stick true to what the band, what they want, what the material is.
Favorite song to mix in this tour?
Oh, I have two.
Okay.
There's a album track that we do called "Say I."
That song.
"Say I" hits so hard live.
Yeah.
Coolest moment for me is a toss-up every night between either he'll have the crowd sing "One Last Breath" and having 25,000 people in an arena just singing. That's super cool. "Arms Wide Open's another one that they have so many iconic songs.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of number ones these guys have it's pretty stupid.
Last song you mixed that made you emotional in a good way? Not even necessarily from these guys.
It was probably Higher, and I can tell you the show. Okay. So we did Hershey Stadium in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which was my hometown show. It was the first time my mom and dad came out to this size show. And it was crazy because we originally put it on sale at 27,000, sold out. They added more seats, sold out. Added more seats, till we sold the whole stadium as far as back. They couldn't, Fire Marshal would not let us sell more tickets. 32,000 people, and Higher was the only song that my parents knew. So to have that and have it be that large and have it was kind of that oh cool, my kid actually did something. It was a cool thing to be because they're not into rock music, but it was cool to see something where they're okay, you're part of something bigger than.
What do you think makes Creed as prevalent today as they were in 1997?
They wrote great songs. Point simple. It's just good. It's if you listen to the writing, you listen to the music. There's good songs. They stand the test of time. I mean, Scott will he'll every once in a while we'll do shows. We'll do a acoustic show or something like that, and he'll tell a lot more stories. And he says that he's got a whole bit on the Muzak version of all the Creed songs of you made it when you get in the elevator and you can't escape your own music, right? He's we've made it to the elevator. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's like, I don't hear my vocal. It's a string part playing my vocal, and here we are as the Muzak version of and that's how the test of time with the songs. We're about the same age. you never got away from them.
Yeah.
Even when they went on hiatus
yeah.
in 2009.
Oh yeah.
From then until now, you still hear Creed on the radio.
Yeah.
And then I think with the resurgence of like, songs like Arms Wide Open, having it spread now 3 generations.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, and it's like
I'm getting old, man.
Yeah, I know, and it's like
Wow.
people are showing it to their kids, and now they have, because again, their music, if you had fans that were, when they were 25, if they had fans that were 50 having kids, and then their kids have kids, and blah, blah, blah. Scott's a granddad now. So like, and which is super cool. He's like really happy because his favorite joy in the world is being a dad. So like being able to take that and have his songs translate to his kids and now to his grandkids and stuff like that, and having their fan base that has done that as well. That particular song has been passed down. You see people now that come out and you see 2 or 3 generations of a family, which is kind of cool. Like,
Yeah, it is really cool.
so I think that the trick to longevity is just writing good music.
Looking back to your career, do you ever have a moment that your oh crap moment, walking into a situation going, oh crap, I can't believe?
Man, I've had a bunch of good ones. I've had a couple good mistakes. I've definitely had the in the profile days, leaving it in config mode and accidentally, being like, oh, I'm gonna throw this new cool compressor on my master, and PA comes back and hits you, 105 full blown. That after you've lost, you lose sound for 10 seconds, but 10 seconds is a long time.
Yes, it is.
I've had, massive festivals where, like a Download Festival one time, I had to roll in with a thumb drive, hit load, and barely got through a line check, and here we go. And like halfway through the set, we never checked the 808. We were in clubs prior to being at this festival, so my 808 had crazy low frequency shelf on it and was probably gassed all the way up. And when they hit that 808, I watched 30,000 people fall over from just, and it was 100% my bad, but we just never got to line check that because it was like,
my bad.
yeah, well, man, system engineer, like you go over to Europe, man, they're super tight on the SPL stuff.
Yeah.
So like that got me in trouble. You have all those moments where you're like nervous about doing a big festival, or like when you get around your friends, right? You're there with your other colleagues, and not so much as a competition, but more like, hey, I know this person's really, really good. Like there's there's a lot of great engineers right now.
Yeah.
Guys like Eddie. I'm glad I don't have to mix against Eddie every night, because Eddie is really, really good.
Yeah.
Nate Northway, great
gosh.
You know what I mean? You get the guys, and they're the guys that are our age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not, they're not the old guard, and the old guard is still really good. Like
Yeah.
you don't want to mess with Pooch. He'll murder you.
Well, even some of these new kids too coming up, they're just doing killer mixes, man.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them,
Yeah.
and the thing is that the knowledge base, like. It's cool to see, like, Pooch and Rabel did their whole
Yep.
podcast thing,
Yep.
right, during COVID. The amount of wealth of information that they gave out to the world is invaluable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, guys that didn't have access to those 2 individuals can now get on YouTube and watch a 40-something episode series and walk out being like, wow, I know a lot more about audio than I did, 40 hours of videos ago. So like, it's cool to see the newer engineers come up and be good. It's not like your openers suck anymore. Every band is coming in.
It kind of forces everybody.
Oh, it brings everybody up.
Yeah.
It brings, there is no, mediocrity. Everybody's got to be good. And now with the cell phones, it's back to that topic of like knowing that, man, if you bomb, you're gonna know it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely it's cool to see the world move in that direction. It's a little terrifying, like seeing like where things are going. The whole AI thing's crazy.
Yeah, the AI thing is crazy. And I was talking with Skol about this the other day, of just the leaps in technology, and then also I remember I'm not gonna talk about his name now, but there's a buddy of mine who was in a meeting with a bunch of producers and engineers once a year, and they talk about the future technology is all going to be transducers, it'd be the ears and what, and they were talking to this young girl that was there. and like, hey, let's ask her. She's the future. Like, what do you think? She's like, you guys are missing the point. Well, what do you mean? Like, we just want to share with our friends. You don't care. It's like, is that our future? Is it just going to be sharing on phones now? Is the audio files gone? Are we gone?
Well,
what's your thoughts? What do you think the future is?
Man, I don't know, because if I did, I'd make a lot more money. If I knew how to bottle that and sell it, I mean, I would. I know that, I'll put it this way. I can hand my show file over to Curtis, who does 3 Doors Down. He could hand his show file over to me. We would both mix the bands, sound would still come out. Even though we're on each other's show files, it wouldn't sound like, I wouldn't sound like him, he wouldn't sound like me. You know what I mean? And it is a human touch. You know, you can have all the preset files in the world. I've sat behind CLA and watched him do a snare drum a gazillion times. I can never get my snare drum to sound as good as his. Yeah. I have all the presets. Yeah. There's a magic, there's a touch, and there's a human element that I don't think the technology's at yet. I think it could get there, but you know, who knows? But at the end of the day, somebody still has to set up all this stuff. You know what I mean? We've got, you know, 8 trucks worth of equipment every day. So the human element is still gonna, until they can do that.
I was talking with Eddie and Scoville the other day about watching bands, and then with the engineers that are with them, and no matter where the band has gone within their career, with that one engineer, their shows have been the same, and they've been so. And then you watch the engineer go, and the band's kind of just. There's so many bands you can look back at Metallica, look back at all these major ones, and then you can see right with that engineer. Yep. There's something with that person. You
become kind of a 5th or 6th member of the band. You know what I mean? You find like your groove of like where you're. You know, again, your interactions with them. I spend a lot of time with the band. I'm very blessed to be able to travel with them and, you know, talk with them regularly. There's a lot of interaction between me and my guys, which is awesome because, you know, they take the time to answer my questions of what, you know, if I have anything going on or like if I have any suggestions. They're pretty good about like, you know, not just, you know, oh, there are sound guys out there. Like they're pretty involved, which is nice.
Okay, so from where you're at, what's your advice to the new band and the new engineer that are just starting that relationship? What would you be advising, or maybe to yourself when you?
Well, I mean, I look at it this way: like, number one rule is just don't be a dick. You know what I mean? That's I mean, it's plain and simple. If you're nice to people, they'll tend to be nice to you. Ask good questions, and ask good questions to the right people. Like, take the time to study, you know, engineers or go to shows, and if you have a show that sounds really great, take the time to walk over to the guy afterwards, and if he's got time, you know, 9 out of 10 times the engineer will sit and talk to you. And that's how I've learned a lot of things, of just making those friends and like learning from other people, because, you know, there's always somebody better than you. So take the time to research the people that are better than you. Reach out to them, see if they'll, you know, and 9 out of 10 times they'll talk to you, they'll give you advice, they'll you know, and, you know, study that. So, and then for the band to an engineer, you know, I don't know if I really have any good advice other than, you know, if you know you've got someone who's really good and they're asking you for something, you know, maybe take a listen or try to understand them instead of just writing them off, would be the advice to bands. But it's definitely one of those things of like, the more you study, the better it's going to be.
Coolest trick you've learned recently?
Coolest trick I've learned? Man, I don't have a whole lot of bag of tricks. I would say, I mean, just paying attention, you know, to your phase relationships and stuff, and manipulating that in a manner that works for you. Sure. In terms of tricks, man, I don't do a lot. There's really, it's just good fundamentals.
Best piece of advice you've got from one of your mentors?
Study the artist's catalog before you're going out to the shows. Know the music. You don't want to get caught with your pants down of not knowing a part or not knowing stuff. And just communicating with them of like, what do you want? Because sometimes artists don't like their records. They're like, I recorded that 20 years ago. I hate how it sounds. I want it to sound like this now. So like, you know the music, know the material, but always, you know, go with your artist and, you know, see their vision. Because at the end of the day, like, you're we're here working for them, right? Whoever the artist is.
From somebody who's worked with a lot of the greats, what do you feel like separates the good from the greats?
I would say songwriting would be number one. There's some artists out there that just, when you write the iconic songs, you write the stuff that's going to stand the test of time. In terms of performances, it's the fact that they're the guys that show up early. They always show up to sound check. They're involved in their project. I think that's what makes artists great.
Sure.
When they truly care about their fans. They care about what the experiences for their audience versus just wanting to get a paycheck for playing the same songs.
What about for engineers?
For engineers, I mean, I've been lucky enough to know a lot of great engineers.
Yeah.
And I think it's the understanding their craft and their ability to solve problems quickly, and to, no matter, like, you don't see them sweat. They're just locked in.
Yeah.
And I think that having, core fundamentals and, forward thinking, and again, just being able to work with their artists in a way that, their artist is happy. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is.
All right.
Customer service.
Hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
Showtime. You got 30 seconds to show. You lose your entire file. You can't load a new one. What do you do?
Rip through the inputs, man.
Restart.
Yeah, restart.
Now, where do you start with that?
Oh, where do you start? Vocal. Always vocal. Everyone's here to hear the songs. So you can't hear your singer. That's it. And for me, you just heard, I've got a guitar player. My stage volume's pretty hot, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a live microphone that's in front of a loud guitar rig, and everyone's here to hear the songs. They're here to hear every word and sing along with it. So I would, if I lost everything and had to start with one input, that first input's always going to be the vocal. That's even how I sound check too, though. That's a trick. That's actually, I think, I don't know who taught me that. Somebody taught me that when I do sound checks, clubs, theaters, wherever, I always start with the vocal. So I can talk to them and you can talk to me, and like the mix is built, because that vocal mic's always going to be on. It's really hard. You can get a slamming mix and then not be able to get your vocal on top of it, right? So
that's good.
You kind of building around, the source that is A, the most important source, and B, the source that's always going to be on. That's something that a lot of people, we might start line check, an input one and work through. But when I'm starting a sound check with the band on stage, I almost always try to start with the vocals, just so that, and then they can also, communicate with each other as well.
Yeah.
That's the other side of it, is like communication's key, having all your talkbacks set up, all your shouts set up, that, throughout a show, that when you have a problem, because they arise, that everyone can communicate properly. I think that's super important. It's something that's not always taught, you know what I mean? Like, I think when you get to something this level, it's expected, but on like a lower level club tour, even getting walkie-talkies, radios is a huge step for some people.
Yeah.
I've definitely done theater tours where we didn't have radios, and it's like, looking back, I'm like, how the hell did we do that? That was dumb. You know what I mean?
That was dumb.
So, communication's key in any scenario.
So I got a lot of young engineers that watch this, and people who do
You call me old?
churches. Young in their career. Sorry, I meant young in their career. One of the most important things, you talked about this earlier, is the importance of gain staging.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what is gain staging and the importance of gain staging with your mix.
Okay, so part of it's knowing your equipment, and knowing how your equipment is working with your entire system, right? Knowing where zero is, where nominal gain is on the console. Like, for example, this console comes out at negative 24. It's a little lower than some of the other consoles. Digico's like negative 18, Yamaha's negative 20. So knowing like where that fits in the digital scale, because we are always working in a digital world at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Knowing how much headroom you have before you get into digital clipping. There's a difference between the analog clipping and digital clipping. Knowing what it sounds like, of like, okay, this is when you push an analog preamp too far, and it's analog clipping, and then you're digitally clipping as well. But also knowing when you're getting saturation from pushing that pre. So it's not always a game of, oh, just turn it up.
Yeah.
It's knowing kind of where that is. And sometimes it's, okay, I need to turn this preamp up and then trim it back so it fits within the structure so that not everything is pegging. And then knowing your overall structure between your instruments and how they're working as a whole. Because you have to look at, are you, recording every night? Are you, going to virtual sound check? How is that playing into your gain structure of like, okay, cool, I might need more preamp gain for my recording, but I don't need it in my mix, so I know that I need to pull something up and then trim it back, and knowing how your system works, because each console manufacturer does things ever so slightly differently. So I think understanding all of that on top of knowing what sounds good, that's the hard thing, is learning what sounds good, and like having the right mic in the right place and turning it up and getting the sound that is working with your structure. And it's not just like, okay, cool, I'm throwing a bunch of plugins, or I'm throwing, forget all that. Just start with, putting the mic, and have you ever stuck some headphones on while you're players and you're moving around until you're like, here's the spot, proper mic technique, right? That's something that not everybody has been able to be taught. I got a little bit of that because I've done the schooling side and also done the real life side, and learning from other people of like, hey, have you tried it this way?
That's something you said was really important, is like, does it sound good? Because like when you teach sound, it's always like the same thing. You teach them input, source, volume up, all of that. There's always that look afterwards of like, okay, now what? I think the now what is the important part of like.
And and the thing is like, what's it supposed to sound like? That's the other side.
Yeah.
Like, there are, there's plenty of things where it's like, hey, that's your source. But is that what you really want it to sound like?
Yeah.
Or does it need to be different? So we're in the middle of changeover now. We just finished sound check, so we're gonna take a look at some of the stuff. We might have some of our mics and stuff pulled, but I'll kind of show you what we got going on. As we talked about earlier, it's a pretty basic setup. It's 2 guitars, bass, and drums. So got a lot of stagehands on deck right now. So we'll take a pit stop here in Monitor World. Analog split. Our monitor engineer Brian is on a Avid S6L. So he's running 10 channels of PSM 1000 for the in-ear mixes. We've got Axient for all of our wireless. My rack is over here. I've got, a full 72 input sync. This is Brian Moran, our monitor guy. We'll wait to get up on stage here in just a second, because it looks like they might be moving some carpet here. Real quick, so 2 cabinets, wet cabinet, dry cabinet, multiple amplifiers going on. He's got MT100s and he's got some Synergy. Across the kit, normal drum kit, kick in, kick out, snare top and bottom. I've got Beta 57s
Oh, yeah, the 2
and
tops. That's
SR25.
really cool.
Yep. Watch out, they're coming through here with this tape. Cymbal mics are all SR25s, SR30s for overheads, SE Electronics for the kick-in, all the toms. We've got the Earthworks DM6 is the second kick drum mic that's in there. Bass cabinets, everything is DI. And then Kemper's going through a cabinet and down below. But let's look at that trigger thing real quick. Get back here through Pyro World. So what was cool is that we actually mounted 1/4-inch inputs that are TRS.
Oh, that is so cool.
That I mounted that are gold, that are inside. So we just take our trigger inputs and pop. It's the slickest, cleanest way. You'll never know. Yeah, you can take a step up and just look down in, and then just mount right down in.
That is not, bro.
Yeah.
That is genius, bro.
And that's it. That's our rig. It's super simple. So it's just, 2 guitars, bass and drums.
Let's go.
Sound is totally subjective.
100% subjective.
And it's kind of tough because, that person's different than me than it's to you, but it is objectively subjective in a way.
Yes.
How do you know when you hit the sweet spot? How do you know when you made a good mix?
Man, for me, it's when it's a combination of things. It's at the end of the night, you know, lights come on, everybody starts scattering like bugs. It's the people that come up and they're like, man, this was a great concert, this is a great show, yada, yada, yada. Like, the compliments is nice from the actual audience. But then later at night when it goes online and it's, you look down the comment list and it's like nothing but positive comments, and they're positive comments about how the band played or how good the singer sounded or how whatever. They're not directly comments about the sound, you know, of like, oh, the sound guy killed it or whatever, but they're just like, the audience was able to experience the band and not be distracted by what we're doing. Like, that's the cool thing for me, right? Is like, it's awesome to go online and see nothing but positive comments about how good the show is. And it's a combination. It's like, they're like, our lighting team is on point, our pyro team is on point, our video guys are on point, the audio team is killing it, the band is putting on a great performance. So it's a team effort. But knowing that the audience is engaged in the show and you can see the audience is locked in, that's when I know I'm doing a good job, because that's what's cool, is having people walk away saying, this experience, like, I just experienced Creed and it was awesome. And that's what we want. We want, you know, it's a full team effort.
Yeah. So it's funny because that little hour and a half is amazing, but is...
It goes by quick.
It does go by quick, and this little thing here is just not reality. You go home to reality, and then you come back to this crazy thing called touring, and you kind of go back, and it's kind of a tough thing to balance sometimes.
You have a home?
I have a home. You have a home?
I don't have a home.
Well, I guess
that's cool.
My question with that is, how do you stay grounded in this and come back to? Do you just thrive in the chaos and want to live in this 24/7, or is just how do you stay balanced and not go to?
I mean, the crazy part is that, like, on this gig I'm just doing front of house, which is awesome. For a lot of my gigs I'm also tour managing, right? So on top, and I'm still tour managing actively now. Like, I have a band that's flying today that I've been checking to make sure all the flights and stuff are good. But you know, I do thrive a little bit in the chaos, but I have a really good home situation as well. I've been with my girlfriend for 10 years now, so she's got the
Put a ring on that.
You know, if I had a quarter every time I heard that. No, she's awesome. She's a doctor of physical therapy, so she's got a clinic, and she keeps things locked down at home. So I always have something nice to come home to, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And she likes to come out and travel. So, like, having a work balance is hard, because being a tour manager, no matter what, I'm on call 24/7. You know, so we just took a vacation recently, and we chose to go to Montana because my phone won't work there. We're at Yellowstone, and it's like, you know, cell service isn't there, so you can't call me.
All right, I got a question for you. I'm sure in your life you have never made one mistake ever.
I made a ton of mistakes.
What's the biggest one, and what did you learn from that?
Oh man, biggest mistake. That's a hard one. Symphony of kick drum is one that a lot of engineers
Is that like the
make.
lead kick?
The lead kick, yes, is something that, like, for when I was doing the metal thing was like, yeah, how good my kick drum. You know, this D6 sounds amazing. Yeah, and just and not listening back to, you know, to the actual mix, but actually just making everything too loud for no reason. You know, now we do a lot of I mean, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4 different SPL meters sitting here in front of house. So we take that stuff.
Oh, for the whole show?
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, you know, he's got, you know, my system engineer, he's tracking for everybody. I've got it for myself. Curtis has got it for himself. Shelby's got it for himself.
Each one
Everybody, you know, that's something that's different, is that, you know, 10 years ago, Smart wasn't something that everyone had access to and knew how to use. To this day, people still don't know how to use it properly, but the SPL functions is a newer thing of, like, people really paying attention to how much of the mix that we are, you know, we're measuring how loud we are and taking care of our ears. Because, like,
for those of you that don't know, SPL stands for speaker pretty loud.
But no, just taking care of your ears. That's something that early on I wish I should have done. You know, wearing the earplugs more, not mixing as loud, not wanting just to crush people with low frequency. and learning how to have a really balanced mix that, you know, works, isn't just loud.
So how do you make a mix loud without making it loud?
Dynamics.
What do you mean?
So creating space for your room, your mix to breathe, in terms of not just having a, you know, candy bar shaped, you know, waveform coming out of the desk, and getting, you know, room for moments that can be loud. Like I have moments that can be really loud with this show, and I have moments that can be really quiet, and not having it be taxing on your ears.
Yeah.
Understanding what the Fletcher-Munson curve is and how your human hearing works and what frequencies can really, really damage your hearing, and learning how to balance those, that they're pleasant to listen to and not painful.
Can you explain a little bit about the Fletcher-Munson curve?
So basically, it's a chart that shows your sensitivity in the frequency range as to which frequencies are more sensitive to your hearing, and ones that are less frequency. So it's also what we work with, A weighting and C weighting for our SPL limits and stuff, and looking at where we're at, and, you know, knowing that, hey, between that 2 and 4K, you're really sensitive right there. It's the easiest place to put holes in your hearing from, you know, having too much of that, and also can be unpleasant. You know, so balance. Everything is about balance.
What is one piece of advice you give to audio engineers that immediately make their lives easier?
Ooh, immediately make their lives easier. Focus on the vocal. That's anything, whether you're doing a record or you're doing a live sound or you're doing, you know, a corporate show, whatever. Focusing on getting clear vocals, because the number one complaint any engineer has always heard is, I can't hear the vocal.
Yep.
The first thing that anybody walks up, it's either it's too loud or I can't hear the vocal. That's it. Yeah.
Real fast, can you walk through what you got?
Yeah, so I'm running HD96 at front of house. My monitor guy, Brian Moran, he's rocking an SXL and monitors. We're 64 inputs. It's a lot of inputs for a 5-piece band.
Yeah, triggers for drums?
So I've got triggers for the gates only. So I did a Flip let me actually take the sound port of his drums and the toms. We put in a 1/4-inch jack, and I actually mounted a 1/4-inch jack.
No.
Oh yeah, it's pretty slick. I'll have to show you. But I mounted a 1/4-inch jack inside of each of his toms, and we have 90-degree cables that just plug. We literally plug right into the tom, and it just goes. Yeah, and they're just Pintec RS5s that are soldered up in there. So anyway, triggers on just the toms, nothing on the kick and snare. 2 kick mics, 3 snare mics. We have a dynamic and a condenser on our snare top. Just a dynamic on the snare bottom. Tom mics, ride mic, cymbal mic for hi-hat, standard overhead, so pretty basic on the drums. Bass, we have a clean and a dirty line. Stage right guitar is a Kemper, so we've got a Kemper and then a redundant rig for him, so that's just stereo. Mark's rig is super cool because his guitar tech, Scott Davis, spent a gazillion hours building a quite monstrosity of a rig that has so many capabilities. We have 57s on the cab. I've got ribbons on the cab. We have 2 notes in stereo that are direct outputs. We have Palmers that are direct outputs. And he also has got a Synergy amp. We have XLRs directly out of the Synergy. So I have 14 available inputs for Mark's guitar to choose from. So Mark's theory is to have he wants to give me, he's like, whatever you think sounds best or works best, here's everything, which is super cool. I've got a blend of a couple inputs that I use for different songs, but it's super cool to have that. And we've got some Neve DIs for our acoustic guitars and vocals. We've got 5 different vocal mics up on stage that come on and off, mostly wireless, and then we have 1 wired mic for our stage right guitar player. And then everything after that is just all talkbacks. We've probably 12, I think we're probably about 12 talkbacks or so. So we fill up that plus audience mics. We hit 64. So yeah.
Cool. And looks like you got some Rupert Neve outboard gear here. A lot of Rupert Neve, actually.
A lot of Rupert Neve.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's a lot of Neve, a little bit of SSL. So this is kind of a cool thing. So I have been working what I call just live mastering.
Okay.
So taking the concept of, what a mastering engineer does, but then doing that to the live mix, right? So I'm coming out of the console AES. I hit the SPL Mercury. That's my D to A converter. It's a really, really high-end converter. I was going back and forth. Andy Meyer actually recommended this one to me. I was going back between this and another product and went with that. I hit the MBT. The MBT is what I use for saturation, so using that for some color. Then it goes into the SSL Bus Plus. I've got that set up as a parallel compressor that is just doing transient control. So it's pretty fast attack, pretty fast release, just kind of keeping the transients at bay. Then it goes into the Portico 2, the master bus processor. That's slow attack, slow release, and then I'm using some of the stereo width with the stereo field editor that has. Then that goes to the master bus converter, which converts back to AES, back into ZES. So the entire chain is in one insert. It's it's an AS3, just pop, in and out. My round trip is 0.8 milliseconds.
Wow.
Super fast, and conversion, obviously, the SPL is super clean on the front end, and the Neve is super clean and has some color on it. I've got some silk in a couple different places. And what's interesting is that it's a combination, because if you measure what the Super Silk does, even though it's still doing, blue and red, doing the harmonics that they do, it does it more as a shelf on each end, where in the master bus converter and in the master bus processor, they're more like bell curves. So it's interesting when you start blending all of them and where you end up, saturation wise, and hitting harmonics in different points in the chain. And then I've got a Shelford on Scott's vocal, so that just comes straight down, analog, straight in, and then Shelford right into the console, because you can't, we're using a SC Electronics V7 capsule, Axient wireless stick, and Shelford channel. And honestly, I don't have to do a ton to it. It's just it's there. It's like one of those preamps. You turn the preamp and be like, yep, there it is. It's just one, and when you run, and I have it set up that it also bypasses it as well. I have a redundant if any of this would go down. And listening to the two, even though the Midas pre's sound great, the Shelford sounds better, but it's also like $4,000 or $5,000 preamp. So I hope it would sound better.
For the price, you'd hope so.
But yeah, that's it. Even though you see the wave server there, it's not in play. But I have doing recording in two different ways. I've got MADI cards that are going to an MGB. The MGB is doing SoundGrid, so I've got recording on one computer for SoundGrid, and then over here, Midas has given me the new Cobalt, which is a super cool box, and it's 192 channels by 192 channels on USB-C, which is pretty crazy. And that I don't have my MacBook here, but I'll set up my MacBook in Pro Tools. So one machine I just record for virtual sound check, and I'm just running that. The other is on Pro Tools. That way, if the band is ever like, hey, we need to do whatever, I've got a full-blown Pro Tools session on a separate hard drive. I don't have to rip anything here apart. I don't have to transfer files. It's in two places. It's redundant re-recorded because it's going two completely different paths, as well as my monitor guy. So as we record things for any videos or things that we may or may not release at any point in time, we've got a couple different places to pull it off. So having redundancy there is pretty cool.
Perfect. If people want to follow you and follow your career, where can they follow you at?
Kyle_Gerhart. Really simple. Or you can check out my company, In Phase Productions.
Okay.
So I have a small company where I do control packages for touring bands.
Cool.
So consoles, snakes, splits, RF, in-ears, everything that you need to show up to a gig and make it work.
There you go. Or come to a Creed show near you. Thank you very much, man. We did it.